Greetings, my friends. Today, we are diving into a powerful and transformative subject that many of us face daily: the burden of perfectionism and how we can move beyond it to find true freedom. In our modern world, where competition is fierce and demands are constant, the pressure to achieve an unrealistic standard of flawlessness can be overwhelming. We feel the weight of expectations pressing down on us, whether it's crafting the perfect social media post, keeping an immaculate home, or ensuring every detail in a report is spotless. We live in a society that idolizes perfection and views anything less as failure. But what if I told you that there is another way? A path where we can find peace and purpose, not by striving for an impossible ideal, but by embracing our authentic, imperfect selves? This is where the wisdom of the ancient Stoics comes into play. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus taught us to accept imperfection as a natural part of life and to find strength, serenity, and authentic excellence in the reality of who we are. The Stoics did not worship perfection. Instead, they saw value in embracing our flaws, finding true freedom in letting go of the unrealistic desire to be perfect. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it, Marcus Aurelius once said. This mindset reminds us that it is not external circumstances, but our perception of them that determines our peace and happiness. By changing how we view our own imperfections, we can transform how we experience life. Throughout this journey, we will explore Stoic teachings that can help us redefine our relationship with imperfection, not as a weakness to overcome, but as a gateway to growth, self-compassion, and meaningful achievement. Imagine a student frozen with fear at the thought of submitting anything less than a flawless assignment, or a professional caught in a loop of endless revisions, unable to declare a project complete. These struggles are all too familiar in our modern world. They stem from an inability to accept our limits, a belief that anything short of perfection is unworthy. The Stoics, however, offer us a liberating alternative. They teach us that by focusing on what is within our control, by valuing effort over flawlessness, and by showing ourselves compassion, we can break free from the chains of perfectionism and truly thrive. So let us embark on this journey together, guided by the wisdom of the Stoics. Let their insights empower you to abandon the exhausting pursuit of perfection and to embrace the courage to show up as your perfectly imperfect self. Chapter 1: The Roots of Perfectionism. To understand how to overcome perfectionism, we must first understand what it truly is and why it is so pervasive in our lives. Perfectionism is the relentless pursuit of flawlessness, an inability to accept anything less than an ideal, often leading to fear of failure and paralyzing self-doubt. In today's world, the culture of perfectionism is amplified by social media, where people present carefully curated versions of their lives. Perfectly posed photos and edited posts create an illusion of flawlessness, giving the impression that everyone else has it all figured out. But behind those glossy pictures lies reality, a reality that is inherently imperfect. The Stoics understood this truth. They knew that the pursuit of perfection was an unattainable goal, and that true happiness comes from accepting and embracing our human flaws. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." By learning to shift our thoughts away from unrealistic standards, we can free ourselves from the psychological toll that perfectionism takes. Perfectionism often manifests in procrastination. The fear of not doing something perfectly keeps us from doing it at all. It also leads to burnout, as we push ourselves to exhaustion in an attempt to meet impossibly high standards. This takes an immense toll on our mental health, contributing to anxiety, depression, and a constant sense of inadequacy. Even our successes can feel hollow because we never allow ourselves to be satisfied. The Stoics offered an alternative path. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." The Stoics valued excellence, doing one's best, but they knew that perfection was a self-imposed torment. The journey to overcoming perfectionism begins with self-awareness, recognizing our tendencies and understanding the root causes. Only then can we start to cultivate a healthier mindset, one rooted in self-compassion and acceptance. Chapter 2, Embracing Human Flaws Through Stoicism. The foundation of the Stoic approach to overcoming perfectionism lies in accepting imperfection as an intrinsic part of the human experience. Seneca once asked, "What progress have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself." This powerful sentiment captures the essence of what the Stoics teach us about self-acceptance. To truly grow, we must first accept and befriend our imperfect selves. Imagine if you treated a friend the way you often treat yourself. Would you criticize them as harshly for a minor mistake? Would you berate them for not being perfect? The answer is likely no. Yet when it comes to ourselves, we often hold impossibly high standards and show little compassion. The Stoics remind us that self-compassion is not a weakness, but a form of strength. Embracing our flaws allows us to focus on what truly matters: our growth, our character, and our contribution to the world. Epictetus taught that we must distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. We cannot control the outcome of our efforts or what others think of us, but we can control our actions, our mindset, and our response to challenges. This simple shift, focusing on what we can control, frees us from the burden of perfectionism. It allows us to focus on doing our best without being paralyzed by the fear of not being perfect. Imperfection, in the eyes of the Stoics, is not a liability, but an opportunity for growth. We develop resilience and strength of character by facing our flaws and vulnerabilities head-on. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." By changing how we think about our imperfections, we can find freedom from the need to be perfect. Instead of viewing mistakes as failures, we can see them as stepping stones on our journey of growth. Chapter 3, Mastering Control and Letting Go. One of the most powerful lessons the Stoics teach us is the importance of focusing on what is within our control. Much of our struggle with perfectionism stems from our desire to control outcomes, to ensure that everything we do is flawless and that others perceive us in a positive light. But the truth is, many of these factors are beyond our control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When we focus on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses, we can free ourselves from the anxiety and frustration that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. Instead of worrying about what others think or whether our work will be perfect, we can focus on putting in our best effort and learning from the experience. Consider a time when you felt overwhelmed by the fear of not being perfect. Maybe it was a presentation that didn't go as planned or a project that didn't meet your expectations. How might your experience have been different if you had focused on what you could control rather than worrying about the outcome? By shifting our focus in this way, we can find freedom from perfectionism and build resilience in the face of challenges. The Stoics also teach us to let go of attachment to outcomes. This is not to say we should be indifferent to success or failure, but rather that we should not tie our sense of self-worth to results beyond our control. By focusing on what is within our power, we cultivate an inner strength that is not easily shaken by external circumstances. This mindset is key to freeing ourselves from the pressures of perfectionism and finding true contentment. Chapter 4, Finding Joy in the Journey. Another key Stoic teaching that can help us overcome perfectionism is the importance of embracing the process rather than fixating on the outcome. In our quest for perfection, we often become so focused on the end result that we lose sight of the journey itself. We rush through tasks, trying to achieve a flawless outcome, and in the process, we miss out on valuable opportunities for learning and growth. Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life, Marcus Aurelius advised. This doesn't mean that we should treat every task with a sense of urgency or dread. Rather, it means that we should approach everything we do with care, presence, and intention. When we are fully present in the process, we are less likely to be consumed by the need for perfection. Instead, we can find joy and fulfillment in the act of doing. Think about a time when you were so focused on the end goal that you forgot to appreciate the journey. Maybe it was a work project or a personal goal that you were pursuing. How might your experience have changed if you had shifted your focus to the process rather than the outcome? By embracing the process, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, and we become more willing to learn and grow from our experiences, regardless of the outcome. The Stoics encourage us to celebrate small victories along the way. By acknowledging the progress we make, no matter how minor it may seem, we can find motivation and joy in the journey itself. Each step we take, each effort we make, brings us closer to our goals, and that in itself is worth celebrating. This perspective helps us shift away from the unrealistic pursuit of perfection and toward a more balanced, fulfilling way of living. Chapter 5. Growth through Imperfection. The Stoics were strong advocates of self-improvement, but their approach to growth was fundamentally different from the perfectionistic mindset. They believed that true self-improvement is not about striving for an unattainable ideal, but about aligning our actions with our values and embracing our imperfect selves. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The Stoics taught that meaningful growth comes from accepting ourselves as we are while striving to be better. It's not about erasing our flaws, but about using them as a catalyst for growth." Self-improvement, in the Stoic sense, is about setting realistic, process-oriented goals and committing to steady, incremental progress. Rather than fixating on flawless outcomes, the Stoics encourage us to focus on the actions and habits that lead to growth. This could be practicing a new skill, committing to regular self-reflection, or cultivating a positive mindset. They also remind us to embrace a growth mindset, to view setbacks and mistakes not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and refine our approach. One of the most important aspects of the Stoic approach to self-improvement is self-compassion. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend, we create an environment where growth can thrive. We acknowledge that mistakes are inevitable, and we greet them with curiosity rather than harsh self-judgment. This self-compassion is essential to the Stoic path of self-improvement and allows us to grow in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling. Chapter 6. The Power of Reflection and Learning. Finally, the Stoics teach us the importance of reflection and continuous learning. Overcoming perfectionism is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing journey. It requires us to remain self-aware, to question our thought patterns, and to be open to growth opportunities. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This sentiment is at the heart of the Stoic practice of reflection. By taking time to reflect on our experiences, we can gain insight into our perfectionistic tendencies and make more conscious choices about how we want to live. Imagine taking just 10 minutes each evening to journal about your day, the challenges you faced, the moments of growth, and the times when perfectionism crept in. How might that simple practice change your relationship with imperfection? In addition to reflection, the Stoics also emphasize the importance of continuous learning. Seneca wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." By remaining curious and open to new perspectives, we can continually refine our understanding and our ability to embrace imperfection. The Stoics also teach us to learn not just from books or formal education, but from the world around us, from the people we meet, and from the challenges we face. Every moment is an opportunity to learn something new, to grow in understanding, and to develop the resilience that allows us to face life's imperfections with grace. As Epictetus said, "Only the educated are free." In this context, education is not limited to formal learning, but extends to the lessons we derive from life itself. Imagine for a moment the story of an artist who spends years perfecting their craft. In the beginning, they may have been obsessed with perfection. Every brushstroke had to be flawless, every piece immaculate. But over time, they come to realize that true art is not found in flawlessness, but in the expression of their authentic self. They learn to see beauty in the imperfections, in the rawness and vulnerability that make their work unique. This artist's journey is a reflection of the Stoic path, a journey from the pursuit of perfection to the embrace of imperfection as the foundation for true growth and fulfillment. As we bring this journey to a close, I invite you to reflect on the lessons we have explored. The Stoics have offered us a path to freedom from perfectionism, a path that begins with self-acceptance, focusing on what is within our control, embracing the process, practicing self-improvement with compassion, and committing to lifelong reflection and learning. By following this path, we can let go of the exhausting pursuit of perfection and embrace the courage to show up as our authentic selves, flaws and all. The journey ahead will not be perfect, but it will be ours. Let us move forward, imperfect yet whole, and live each moment with the intention to grow, to learn, and to embrace the beauty of our humanity. Onward, my friends, to an imperfectly perfect life. Chapter 7. Cultivating resilience in the face of setbacks. Resilience is a crucial element in our journey toward overcoming perfectionism. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks are inevitable. The Stoics teach us that it is not the challenges themselves, but how we respond to them that matters. As Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This mindset can help us cultivate resilience when things don't go as planned. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, we can view them as opportunities to grow, adapt, and build our inner strength. Think of a time when you faced a major setback. It could have been a professional failure, a personal disappointment, or a moment when things just didn't go your way. How did you respond? Did you allow the setback to define you, or did you find a way to rise above it? By adopting a Stoic perspective, we can choose to face setbacks with grace and determination, turning adversity into an opportunity for growth. The Stoics teach us that setbacks are an inevitable part of life, but how we perceive and respond to them makes all the difference. When we encounter difficulties, we can either view them as insurmountable obstacles or as opportunities for learning and development. By choosing the latter, we cultivate a resilience that allows us to face challenges with courage and confidence. This resilience becomes a source of inner strength, enabling us to navigate life's ups and downs with a sense of purpose and composure. Chapter 8. The importance of self-kindness. Another essential aspect of overcoming perfectionism is practicing self-kindness. Perfectionists often have a harsh inner critic, constantly pointing out flaws and shortcomings. This internal voice can be incredibly damaging, leading to a cycle of self-doubt and fear of failure. The Stoics remind us that we must befriend ourselves and show the same kindness to ourselves that we would offer a dear friend. Imagine if you spoke to a friend the way you often speak to yourself. Would you call them a failure for making a mistake or criticize them for not being perfect? Of course not. Yet we tend to be our own worst critics. Practicing self-kindness means treating ourselves with empathy, understanding, and forgiveness. It means recognizing that we are all human and mistakes are part of the journey. By replacing our inner critic with a compassionate voice, we can create a nurturing environment where we are free to learn, grow, and thrive. Self-kindness also involves acknowledging our achievements, no matter how small they may seem. Instead of focusing solely on what we haven't accomplished or where we fell short, we should take time to recognize our progress and celebrate our successes. This positive reinforcement helps to build our confidence and motivates us to continue striving for growth. The Stoics teach us that self-compassion is not about excusing our shortcomings, but about understanding them and using them as a foundation for future growth. Chapter 9. Finding freedom through authenticity. Finally, we must learn to embrace authenticity as a path to true freedom. The pressure to be perfect often stems from a desire to be accepted by others or to live up to societal expectations. But the Stoics teach us that true freedom comes from living in alignment with our values and embracing who we truly are, imperfections and all. When we let go of the need to present a flawless image to the world, we open ourselves up to genuine connections, deeper relationships, and a more fulfilling life. Consider the people you admire most. Are they perfect? Likely not. In fact, it is often their authenticity, their willingness to be vulnerable, and their ability to embrace their imperfections that make them inspiring. By choosing to live authentically, we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, to take risks, and to pursue our passions without fear of judgment. We find freedom in being ourselves, and in doing so, we inspire others to do the same. Authenticity also means being honest with ourselves about our strengths and weaknesses. It means recognizing that we do not have to be all things to all people, and that our value does not depend on meeting unrealistic expectations. By embracing our true selves, we can focus on what truly matters to us, pursue our passions with sincerity, and find joy in the process. This sense of freedom allows us to live a life that is not dictated by the need to impress others, but is guided by our own values and aspirations. As we move forward on this journey, let us remember that perfection is not the goal. The goal is to live fully, to embrace our flaws, and to find joy in the process of becoming the best version of ourselves. With resilience, self-kindness, and authenticity, we can break free from the chains of perfectionism and live a life that is beautifully, imperfectly our own.